If you haven't watched the previous videos, please go back and do so now. I've made them as short as I can so that everybody can digest them in a reasonable time. Please watch those now or this video won't fully make sense. Out of everything we've seen in the previous videos, we've seen Bible verses encoded, especially Revelation 13:18. We've seen all kinds of connections to the royals in England, the founding of Israel, all kinds of Masonic names and messages and slogans. We've seen nuclear phrases. What is the underlying thread that connects them all? What's the theme of all this? From what I've found, it's none of these. And my first clue to what the theme was the number 13. It's not the number 13 itself. That was just my first clue, the number 13, which happens to be a prime number, a Fibonacci number, and a star number, which I'll explain what that is shortly. I noticed this when I connected September 11th with December 17th, 2022. I had a strong feeling they were related, and the same kind of theme was going to be playing out between both days. These dates are connected by 2197, which happens to be a cubic number, 13 cubed. It's 13 times 13 times 13. Now that's either an accident or it was done intentional, and I couldn't believe that it was an accident. This must have been part of the plan. There's no way this is lost on them. There's no way it just happened. This has to be intentional. 2197 is the 13th cube. Nice little calculator on Gemaginator.com. And like I said, it's a prime, a Fibonacci, and a star. Not to mention a very creepy number historically. But then I said, okay, what do these things mean? Wow, write out the number 13, the 7th Fibonacci, the 6th prime. Wow. That makes a lot of sense. I think this is part of the plan. You get the date, the year, and the place just from the number 13, the 6th prime, the 7th Fibonacci. And then I noticed 13 cubed itself spells 7th Fibonacci. And yeah, that spells the MIT reactor, one of the main targets, but look at that, building 13. Here's the reactor itself. I think the laboratory is one of these two buildings. NW13. I started noticing 13 in the theme. We saw Alcoa heavily signaled in The Dark Knight Rises. Aluminum is the 13th element. We saw how all the syncs from Princess Diana's death to the Citadel to September 11th, she died by crashing into the 13th pillar in that tunnel. 13 is something called an ordered bell number, just like Bellevue Hospital, that was synced for all three of the Dark Knight trilogy movies. We saw that Alcoa was on Isabella Street in Pittsburgh. And like I said, 13 is a star number. Do I need to say whose flag looks like these stars? This verse that kept showing up again and again, it was from chapter 13 of the book of Revelation. The Draper Laboratory. Could have made a whole video on this. Look at that. 7th Fibonacci. Hank's big home run. Barry Bonds' record home run. 7th Fibonacci. On and on and on. I probably missed some. So we've definitely got something here. But what is 13? We'll get to that in just a few slides. It has to do with Euclid, the Mason's hero. So this is the famous 3-4-5 right triangle. In high school geometry, we learned this as Pythagorean theorem. One side squared, 3 squared, plus 4 squared equals the longest side squared. So you got 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25. If you add 9 plus 16, you get 25. Now this was proved by Pythagoras, that's why it's called the Pythagorean theorem, but a few hundred years later, Euclid proved it in his own method. That's his famous 47th problem. The Freemasons' number is 47. And his famous book, which was the most influential mathematics book ever, was called Elements. Like chemical elements, uranium, the nuclear element, aluminum for Alcoa. That book was composed of 13 smaller books. Just like the Bible has many books it's composed of, Elements had 13 books. So that's the meaning of 13. One of Euclid's most famous postulates was the parallel line postulate. That is pretty much the foundation of just about everything. It's a foundational axiom or postulate of classical geometry, Euclidean geometry. And that's where the Twin Towers come in. They are parallel lines. Euclid also found a way to construct a pentagon using a compass and straightedge, and we know what that means. The compass and straightedge, the square and compasses. Euclid found a way to construct a pentagon, and there's your other target on September 11th, the Pentagon. What about that Shanksville plane on September 11th that crashed in Shanksville? Everybody knows it was headed to D.C. A right triangle is at the center, literally here at the center, of Euclid's 47th problem. That plane that was headed to D.C. that crashed in Shanksville was headed to Federal Triangle. Right here. And for a long time I thought it was the Metro Center it was going to crash into. If you look at that monorail episode from The Simpsons, that was totally pointing to the Metro Center. But I think it was really going to hit just a few yards south of that in Federal Triangle. So your three targets on September 11th. Parallel lines, Pentagon, Triangle. All had to do with Euclid. All have to do with the fundamental elements of plane geometry. That's why the weapons on September 11th were planes. You had planes crashing into geometrical symbols. Just like this. Euclidean geometry is plane geometry. And you say, wait a minute, Tower 7 collapsed also. Why did Tower 7 fall if 1 and 2 represented parallel lines? What was the purpose of Tower 7? They collapsed in that order, 1, 2, 7, and that seems like it means 12-7, the date Pearl Harbor was attacked. Date back, you get 5995, the 109th triangular, 9/11. These Masons connect everything. Everybody said that September 11th was the worst attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor, which it was. And there's how it's connected. So that's why it was so important that Tower 7 had to fall too. So, the September 11th attacks, orchestrated and masterminded by the Freemasons, were a tribute to Euclid's Elements and its 13 books. It was all about Euclid and plane geometry. If you go backward from September 11th, 2197 days, you get what I think is considered the best moment in baseball history, even greater than Hank Aaron's record-breaking home run. It was the day Cal Ripken broke Lou Gehrig's long-standing record for, I don't know, was it 15 years I think he went without missing a game? That was on September 9th, or September 6th, 95, which can be written 6995, and there is your Masonic absurdly long title. I'm not even going to read it. Punch it in the calculator if you doubt it. So that's how that was set up. Now this is hard to believe, and I worried that it wasn't right. I worried that people wouldn't believe it. People would think it was lame. People would think that's it. That's all this is about. That's all both of these dates. I'll explain December 17th shortly, but that's all this is. Plain geometry. It's a tribute to Euclid. That's it. The Masons practically worship geometry. They think it's the noblest of the sciences. They think it's the gateway to wisdom. They think it's the key to everything that's worth anything. It's not an exaggeration to say that they worship geometry. Didn't Plato have a sign above his academy saying, "Let no man ignorant of geometry enter these portals"? They're all about geometry. Gematria is considered the geometry of language, and they're definitely big on gematria. Remember the Grenfell Tower that we saw in the England and Israel video? Who was Grenfell? He was the guy that discovered Euclid's manuscript, or a fragment of it, called Papyrus, whatever this is. The guy's name was Grenfell. I don't know about England, but here in the States, Grenfell is not a common name. I've never known anyone named Grenfell. So, as hard as it may be to accept, that seems to be what September 11th was all about. And December 17th, 2022 is along the same lines. But it's not a tribute to Euclid, it's a tribute to Alexandria. So Euclid was September 11th, Alexandria is December 17th. What was ancient Alexandria known for? Well, first they had a library. They had a very famous library. It was the best in the world, the center of so much knowledge and academics, and when it was destroyed, it set the world back hundreds of years. And this is what Columbia University's Union Theological Seminary, Burke Library, represents. That's why I said that was probably the main target. It represents the Library of Alexandria. They're calling Burke Library the most valuable library which has ever been brought into the country. And I'd venture that it's the best in the world. They have so many old texts, sacred religious texts, there's so much there. What else did Alexandria have? They had a school of medicine. That's why the New York University Grossman School of Medicine is targeted, and all those hospitals it's affiliated with. I think it was ranked number 2 in the country last year, something like that. It's a top 5 school. That represents the Alexandria School of Medicine. They also had a citadel. In the Middle Ages, not in ancient Alexandria, but in the Middle Ages, they had a citadel. The late Middle Ages. The early late Middle Ages. I don't know. 1477 it was built. And the citadel in South Carolina represents the citadel of Kite Bay in Alexandria. And finally, for our fourth target, MIT. Ancient Alexandria, they liked alchemy. And that is why I say the MIT Plasma Science and Fusion Center is the real target there. It represents alchemy. Now, fusion is not alchemy. I think most people would agree. But put yourself in the cult's mind. In their mind, fusion is modern-day alchemy. You're fusing two elements together to get a new element. And that's what the holy grail of alchemy was. They wanted to make gold out of lead. They want to turn one element into another, and modern-day nuclear fusion is what they see as alchemy. So that's why I think the MIT Plasma Science and Fusion Center is the target in Cambridge. So there's your 4 targets. And if they're using uranium, I bet they're using uranium-233. That's the 13th Fibonacci. I bet they're using the uranium-233 isotope. That explains your 4 targets. Now we've seen, next to Bellevue Hospital, there is the Alexandria Center for Life Science. The West Tower was synced from Batman Begins. in a huge number, 9154, along with Bellevue Hospital more than once. It's what they're pointing to, Alexandria. It's owned by Alexandria Real Estate Equities, Inc. And they have most of their real estate in Cambridge, it looks like, Greater Boston, Kendall Square, plus what we just saw in New York City. Here's Alexandria Center at 1 Kendall Square. Look at their SEC filing. They're headquartered on Euclid Avenue. Come on, look this up yourself. There's the address. This is their SEC filing. North Euclid Avenue. The company called Alexandria. If you include the end date, syncing September 11th to December 17th, 2197 becomes 2198, Alexandria Real Estate Equities, Inc. The Queen's middle name was almost Alexandria. Now you think, come on, is this really true? Gonna have to look at the first Simpsons episode because that told me a lot. First Simpsons episode aired exactly 33 years before December 17th, 2022. It was a Christmas episode. It was called Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. And look what this date spells. Jesus of Nazareth, Emmanuel, second coming. We'll get into the Jesus stuff, then we'll get into the Euclid of Alexandria stuff. Let's sync these two dates. Exactly 33 years. That was the age Jesus was crucified. He was 33. You include the end date, it comes 331, second coming. Just like 1989, second coming. Look at the title. Jesus Christ, second coming. Raw number of days, 1253, 1253, Euclid of Alexandria in trigonal, in the triangular cipher. Like his famous 345 right triangle. Alexandria was founded in 331 BC. See, Alexander the Great founded Alexandria in 331 BC. Euclid was called the father of geometry. Yep, got it. Sync it in months and days, you get Playfair's axiom, which is a kind of alternative, I guess, to Euclid's famous parallel postulate. Include the end date, 1253 becomes 1254, New York City. And they have definitely got the Union Theological Seminary in the city of New York in English, in Latin, and what's inside of it? Burke Library. They did not forget about the NYU School of Medicine, now called the NYU Grossman School of Medicine. And of course they got Kendall Square, the most innovative square mile on the planet. Draper Laboratory. Are we getting a missile? This says we're getting a missile. Draper definitely invented guided rockets. This is a lot to take in. This is a lot to accept. But you can't say I haven't been consistent. This is a coherent, consistent theory. As odd, as weak as it may sound, it's all about geometry in the end. It's all about Euclid of Alexandria. Both days, September 11th and December 17th. That's it. That's what the numbers are saying. I don't have a crystal ball. All I do is decode things. And the last thing I decoded, the last piece to the puzzle, was the year 2022. Why is this happening now? What does 2022 mean? It's the last piece of the puzzle. And no, it doesn't mean Trump. For a while there, I thought it might, but no, it doesn't. And before I reveal it, let me say, I don't think December 17th is some kind of sequel to September 11th. I think they started at December 17th, worked back to September 11th, and I think September 11th was just a prequel to December 17th, which is the finale. Have to thank Euro Yankee for sending me a video. This person doesn't even know I do this stuff, but sent me a video, and it revealed someone named Hermes Trismegistus. And that is what I think 2022 means. A central occult figure. He was an ancient Alexandrian. If he lived, he was a legendary person. He might not have even have lived. But he's definitely an occult figure, and some very blasphemous creeds equate him with Jesus. I don't. But I think the cult does. And on this day, when all three of these line up, Emmanuel, Jesus of Nazareth, Hermes Trismegistus, they all three line up. This is why this date has been planned for so long. Here's Hermes Trismegistus. He had a famous emerald tablet, but I don't see that synchronized. I think I see smaragdine tablet, and in Latin, tabula smaragdina, synchronized. I'll show that in a minute. There we go. Smaragdine tablet. Just like 7th Fibonacci. And the date United States was founded, July 4th, 1776. Connect that with December 17th and you get Hermeticism. Now this date, I'm not joking about this date, July 4th, 1776, is worth looking into itself because that also spells Jesus of Nazareth, 1776, in Jewish. 7-4, Jesus. 4-7, the 47th problem of Euclid. And they just happened to adopt the Declaration of Independence that day, which is 47 back to back. So take a look at this date, connect it with December 17th, 2022. You get Hermeticism, like I just showed. Hermeticism, which was founded by Hermes Trismegistus, very blasphemously identified as Jesus. And that's why it's possible that this date has been planned for a very, very long time. When all these numbers line up. Now that we have that tablet, we can finally connect Kennedy's assassination with the founding of Israel. Tabula Smaragdina. And we can connect our present Pope to this day, the day he was brought in, Smaragdine tablet. And that is the theme as I see it. You now know everything I know. Not everything, but I left a lot on the cutting room floor, but the theme as I understand it, as it seems to me, and again, I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody whispers in my ear. I don't have divine revelation. I just decode. Others encode, I decode. I go wherever the numbers take me, and this is where the numbers have taken me. I don't pretend it's easy to accept. But ask yourself if I could have made all this up. Could I have made all this up? Nobody could have made this up except the freaks who did. Could I have made this up? The only thing I never really figured out was the Columbine shooting. Look what number it spells out when you sync it to December 17th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I don't even know what that spells. I don't even have a word or phrase that it adds up to, but it's a pretty unique number. This shooting rocked the country for a couple weeks, and when you lead it up to December 17th, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These things just have to be related somehow. So, to conclude everything, these are the places I'm telling you to avoid. First and foremost, Columbia University's Union Theological Seminary represents the great library of Alexandria. Burke Library. the New York University Grossman School of Medicine, and all the hospitals in that little quarter-mile strip that represents the great Alexandria School of Medicine. Kendall Square, Cambridge, especially the MIT Nuclear Fusion Center, which represents alchemy, and the Citadel in South Carolina, which represents the Citadel of Alexandria. Don't be anywhere near these places. I have no doubt this date is correct. The only question is what's going to happen. Don't find out on your own hide. I believe I've explained these two dates. I hope I can prevent the latter. Please share this video, and please stay safe. Thank you.